Welcome to Just Another Hunting Podcast. This is Steve with Mountain to Coast Outdoors in collaboration with Joseph from Way Out West Adventures. We dive deep into the world of hunting, exploring tactics, gear, and unforgettable stories from the field. Join us each week as we interview seasoned experts and passionate enthusiasts who share insights and experiences to help you enhance your hunting skills. Whether you're a novice seeking guidance or a veteran hunter looking for new challenges, this is your go-to resource for all things hunting. Tune in each week to step up your game and to connect with the community who shares your love for the great outdoors. Quick interruption of the podcast. This is Steve with Mountain to Coast Outdoors, and I have a favor to ask you. Before we get into this episode, hit pause and head on over to the main page of our podcast and please leave us a review. We're trying to grow the show, and this will help us tremendously. All right, back to the episode. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we have another awesome guest on. I've got Joshua Hobbs on. I'm sure you guys know who I'm talking about. He's been filming for a crew like Hush and putting a lot of good quality content out on his Instagram. So how you doing tonight, man?
Doing pretty good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for hopping on last second. I know it was kind of a short notice.
Yeah, it's all good. We live on that grind out here, though, in this industry.
Yeah, man. It's definitely a grind. People have no idea how much work goes into this stuff, especially if you're not doing it for a living, trying to run a full-time job and family life and then do this stuff on the side. It's definitely a lot of work.
Yeah, and speaking of, so a lot of people know me for my photography and videography side. It's all that social media really portrays me as. But my 9 to 5, I work for Homeland Security down here in Arizona. I'm actually Border Patrol down here. So that's my 9 to 5 right now. And then on the other side, on my time off, I just put in the extra work and I film hunts and then hunt myself. So burning the candle on both ends there.
Yeah, you told me that yesterday that you were a Border Patrol, and I was going to ask you about that, man. That's got to be a pretty crazy job.
It just depends on who's in office, honestly. But yeah, it gets pretty and it sways one way or the other, just depending on, who's in the house.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I guess we'll save the politics for another podcast. But yeah, anyway, that's gotta be wild. I can only imagine some of the stuff you've had to deal with.
Yeah, it gets crazy down there. It gets Western sometimes for sure.
Yeah, I bet. Well, man, I'm just envious of the quality of the stuff I've seen on your Instagram over the years. So let's start with some camera filming stuff for the guys that might be interested in upgrading their cameras or lenses, or guys that might just want to be getting into self-filming for YouTube or whatever. Maybe they're just going to take photos for their own memories. What'd you start out with? How long have you been at this camera game?
Yeah, so I've been taking photos and videos. Oh man, probably I'm gonna say probably 15 years, about as long as I've had a bow. Honestly, archery is kind of what pushed me into filming and getting into that. For me, it was I went bow hunting. My parents never really bow hunted; they kind of rifle hunt, so kind of grew up that way, right? And when I transitioned to archery, I had all these cool stories, cool encounters, and everybody, as we are hunters, we tell stories. So everybody's like, yeah. And of course, being a little young boy out there running around, my stories might have been a little exaggerated. So I wanted to film them and be able to bring them back and be like, see, I'm not exaggerating as far as you guys think. So I went from filming with the phone to getting a camera, and then kind of fell in love with the side of it, of just being out there with the camera. Sometimes it wasn't about the kill for me. It was about capturing the story of the hunt and being out there in the hunt and getting like the raw emotion out there. Also photographing gear and stuff that I was using. And so for me, it kind of turned more into, instead of just doing it on the side, turned into a hobby, which now turned into like a part-time career on the side there. But yeah, and I started out, so again, like I said, with the camera, like just my phone, man. I was running out there with my phone, running around taking photos. This day and age, phones take pretty dang good videos and pretty good photos. That honestly, I've ran B-roll off of my phone quite a bit. Just run it horizontal, that way you don't have to worry about editing it in post or anything, so it fits on the YouTube. And from there, I upgraded up to a DSLR. And anybody looking into getting into filming, self-filming, photography, there are camcorders out there, yes. I think they slightly limit you, not like too much so that it's not impossible to do anything with, but it just limits you because you can't take as good photos, right? So I would recommend a DSLR. I started out with a Canon 80D, and that's what I started filming on. Great starter camera. I think they run about $1,000 just to get you started and on your feet and going. Quality's there. You guys can even scroll through the Instagram and way down there. There's all the photos and videos I was taking with that. And then progression into it, you definitely want to get a full frame camera, a mirrorless camera, preferably. And full frame just basically means it doesn't have a crop sensor, and you're getting just a better overall quality of everything else, higher megapixels and so forth. Run better glass too with your lenses. Now I'm shooting on Sony, and my favorite Sony body right now is the A7R4 or the A7 IV. Those two are probably my go-to. I actually have two A7 IVs just because when I'm out there running and gunning, those top notch. And the cool thing about those, they have a little setting on the top. You can switch from just photos to just videos, where other cameras, it's the same no matter what. So you're on photo and then you just switch to video real quick and it's running the same settings and you kind of have to change them real fast. The other one, it's preset. So you got photo, video. It's like having two cameras in one. And that's probably, if anybody's going to say what I would recommend, would be the A7 IV.
Yeah. I have the A7S III, but I've thought about buying the A7 IV as I'm thinking about running two cameras next year, one on my shoulder harness and then one with my big lens on my tripod already like strapped on my pack, because I've missed quite a few kill shots for many reasons, like animals too far away, trying to switch lenses takes too long, all that kind of stuff. But then I was doing some research and I saw that the Sony A7 IV's coming out like first quarter of 2025. And I'm like, I'm not a huge fan of the crop in at 60 frames a second on the four. Because I film everything in 60 frames a second just so I can slow it down and post if I want to. I don't have to like think about it. So I think I'm gonna wait for that 5 to come out and buy that thing. I'm excited to see what the specs on that when it's released.
It's gonna be a beast for sure, and definitely probably be an upgrade in my arsenal as well. What lenses do you run right now?
So I usually have, man, I've been going back and forth. So I have a 17 to 28 Tamron f2.8, which a lot of my stuff is self-filmed. So I like to run that lens because I'm usually holding the camera like away from my body, and it gives you like the landscape view plus my ugly mug. It's not like just zoomed in on my face.
Yeah.
But for rifle hunts, I run that 17 to 28, and then I have the 200 to 600 with a 1.4 teleconverter in my pack. And then when I'm archery hunting, I run the 24 to 240, which is the variable. I think it's a f3.5 to f5.6 or something like that. It's a decent lens, but it's like one of the better options for a zoom lens that still has a wide angle on it. So those are kind of my go-tos. And then I have the 50 millimeter. Everybody has the f1.8. I think that's it for lenses for me. So I got 4 right now. I've been thinking about buying that 24 to 105 f4 or the 24 to 70 to f2.8. The 24 to 70 just doesn't have the reach I want, honestly. So I don't know. I've gone back and forth on that one.
So I've bounced around quite a bit. I don't know if listeners know Kobe Owens or Logan Romney, but those guys are awesome dudes. I film with them. I film with Hunt Wars. I film with Hush now. Matty Ice is a killer dude on the camera. He is their main photographer and videographer right now for Hush. But talking to them and kind of seeing, because I'm like you, I don't like to carry a lot of lenses. Switching takes time, so I'd rather carry 2 cameras and run and gun them. A lot of those guys that I work with, they carry like an 18 to 24, 18 to 50, like a variable lens that gets that wide shot and then that tighter shot. So you can use the wide and tight. And then their other lens is going to be a longer telephoto lens there. It's going to be like 35 to 150 or a 24 to 200, something like that. Those lenses are awesome. But what I run right now, and I filmed, I don't know if I have it sitting here, I don't think I do, but I filmed the entire season this year on the Sony 24 to 105 f4, straight all the way through f4. I used that for 90% of everything that I was filming. I was running that. Now I do have a longer lens, and when we switched over to some rifle hunts that allowed it, on my backup camera, I was running the Sigma 60 to 600. It's a beast. It's kind of heavy, but if you're running a rifle and you have the time to set it up on a tripod and punch in, especially if you use that 35 millimeter crop that you can do to extend that range, I think it's like 1.8 is what it zooms it in or something like that. But you can really punch out there and see. So on rifles, I'll use that. But I just bought the Tamron. I think it's the 35 to 150 F2 to 2 point, I think 2.4
Yeah.
like that. Dude, that
Yeah.
is a workhorse.
I love that lens. I rented that lens off of Lens Rentals for a wedding. I shot a wedding last year for the first time ever. And I didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest. So I was like, I want a good lens that I can just kind of stand in some stationary spots and get some killer shots. And that lens was phenomenal, dude.
Yeah, it's, in my opinion, like I just actually did a podcast with Vapor Trail in them, and that was my shiny object, was that lens, because that lens all around just has an amazing focal length with a crazy f-stop on it. It's just, in my opinion, it's the best all around. If you were going to buy one lens and you asked me what lens should I buy right now to not buy another lens for a while, it'd be that 35 to 105 or 150, I think it is. Like,
Yeah.
35 to 150 Tamron 2 point something. It's a beast.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great lens. The only thing about it that held me back from like wanting to buy it was most of my stuff I do is video. And I think the focus point is like 15 or 16 inches from the end of the camera lens. So I was trying to think like, can I hold that thing far enough away and still be in focus when I'm trying to self film? But like filming for a company or filming for your buddies when you have some distance between you and the hunter, that lens would be money, man, for sure.
Yeah, it's great photography lens, especially too with that f-stop. And it just performs a little bit better in low light, bringing that f down, letting more light in. It's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
24 to 105 is that's what I used for. I used that for every hunt this season. I don't think it was off my camera. I'm pretty sure I used it for every single hunt this season.
And that was the Sony lens.
Yep, it's just a
Yeah.
strict f4 24 to 105. Doesn't have a lock on the side or anything. You just can zoom freely. Kind of just has a built-in tensioner on it. And yeah, that lens, awesome lens. Don't really have to worry about much, especially when you're zooming. You know what the variable lens is? If they have a variable f-stop, excuse me, when you zoom, it'll get darker on you or whatnot, and you have to sit there and mess with your settings. Within a straight f4 across the board, it's just the same through and through. So you just buy an ND filter, throw it on there, and you're ready to rock and roll. I believe Logan's favorites too is that 24 to 105.
Yeah, him and I have chatted quite a bit. We're supposed to do a podcast together, but we talk about it and then we never do it. So, yeah, no, yeah, I'm kind of my own worst critic, I guess, like everybody else. So in that video I just dropped, that rifle elk hunt where we doubled on bulls, there's some spots in that film where if you watched it, you probably noticed it was like super dark. And I had my variable ND filter on and totally forgot to take it off. And I had it I have the Peter McKinnon one that switches from 2 to 5, and I had it on 5. Anyway, just like little things like that drive me nuts. Like you get back home, you film for hours, go through all this footage, and like you need the clip to tell the story. Otherwise it just doesn't like flow well and it looks like crap. And I'm just like, dude, out of all the clips, like what were you thinking? Like what happened here,
It happens to all of us. There's always like that one little thing, like, you're filming, you put the camera away for a little bit, you pull it back out, and you just went from like midday sitting around chilling. Now the sun's going down and you're like, oh, something's happening. You pull it out and you're like, oh, shoot. You just go to film to get the content. And then you're like, yeah, whoops.
Yeah.
Had my on.
Yeah. Yeah. And another spot in that film that drives me nuts is I had the 200 to 600 on. My brother set up to shoot that bull, and I was in manual focus because there was like 30 cows and spike bulls around the 5-point raghorn. And there was a bunch of like sagebrush, kind of like bottom of his belly.
Yeah.
So I was thinking like, I want to be in manual so I don't focus on something else. Right. So I use the little red highlighter button that highlights what you're focused on. and I think I'm focused perfectly at like 400 yards on this bull, and get back home, get into post edit stuff, and it's not focused perfectly. And I'm like, you've got to be freaking kidding me, man. Like I got the lens and everything is perfect. And then boom, not perfectly. I mean, it still looks good, but it's not like as crisp as it should be. And it just drives me freaking nuts.
It looked good when I watched it. And it looked like things happened fast for you guys too.
It did, man. So we chased that same herd for 3 days. They were just like, they kept like going over a saddle into the next drainage, and we would relocate and we'd barely pick them back up, and they'd be on the move into another saddle and over into another drainage. So long story short, after 3 days, we pick the elk back up. We bomb over there just before dark, and we're cresting down this basin basically, but there's like some spotty pine trees, and we get to this last patch of pine trees, and I hear a cow mew. And as soon as we like crest over the edge where you can see, there was freaking elk everywhere. And I had killed a bull with my bow in Montana. My brother hadn't killed a bull yet that year, so he was first shooter, like period. And all we saw was that branch, that 5-point raghorn. So anyway, he sets up to shoots that bull. Things happen fast. Another bull bugles in the timber. Don't see him for like a couple minutes, and then all of a sudden he pops out, and I'm like, oh my God, there's another branch bull. My brother puts another shell in, shoots his bull, hits it twice really good. I snag the rifle, run over like 50 yards, range him real quick at 500, jack a shell in, boom, hit him. He folds, hits the ground, rolls down into this little drainage, gets back up, and just like kind of stands there. And I jack in another shell and shot him again, and it was over. But it happened super fast. So yeah, I mean, it was a hell of a trip though. We killed 2 bucks and 2 bulls in 11 days. In the backcountry, sore backs, but it was a great trip.
Hey, heavy packs. That's what it's about right there.
Yeah, I think it was like 4:30 in the morning when we got back to our camp from breaking those 2 bulls down. We shuttled all the meat down to the creek and got it hanging up, and then hiked out that night. And then we spent the next 2 days just packing meat out. It was brutal. There's 2 of us, but yeah. So 2024, man, I saw you did some filming for Hush. Who else did you film for?
So I filmed with, I don't know if you guys know, with King's Camo. I was filming Jake Belinda. I was filming him up in Wyoming. And then honestly, this year it was him in the beginning, about August, like last week of August, first weeks of September. We started off in Wyoming. We ended up in Montana. He had a tag in both states. And then I ended up flying out of Montana back down to here. After that, it was strictly just running and gunning with the Hush guys. And that crew, they grind. They work hard. They grind hard. They're not afraid to put in the miles, and they literally do everything by the book. If it's even remotely questionable, you can bet they're not going to do it. They're not going to play that questionable game. It's 100% by the book. So it was really cool running and gunning with those guys this year, filming them. The next time I went on right after filming up there with Jake I was with Casey, Eric, and Casey's son Gage, and we were up in Utah. It was his son's muzzleloader hunt on a limited entry hunt that they had won up there. Actually, I think they won it through the Hunt Expo is how they won that hunt. And man, dude, all
right, guys, quick pause to the episode. If you want to support the show, we would really appreciate it. It's going to help us keep this thing rolling. Head on over to mountaintocoastoutdoors.com/shop. Pick up a hat, maybe a sweatshirt or a t-shirt. Use code podcast at checkout. Save 10% and help the show grow. All right, guys, back to the podcast.
I've always dreamt of like a September where there's bulls screaming and there's elk everywhere, and you get to like sit back, relax, and kind of like pick which bull you want. You got 20, 30 cows down here, 20, 30 cows up here, bulls screaming. Like that's like everybody's dream, is to get into a rut fest like that. And that dream was blown out of the water on that hunt. That hunt was insane. Like the day 1, we get there and there's bulls bugling. Day 2, when we get there, opening day, when we're ready to hunt, like the morning of, there's just bulls going crazy. And I think we probably saw, man, the first day, like 30 bulls, probably close to 200 elk. Like it was insane. Just bulls screaming, cows everywhere, just rut fest. And there's some cool videos. I mean, the video's up on YouTube right now, but there's some videos I've phone scope footage of just bulls cruising ridges, chasing cows, bulls running bulls off, like, and the sound was insane. There's actually the night we were up there, one of the nights we're in the tent, we're sleeping, and I wake up. I was like, I kind of like jumped awake, like jump scared me, and I'm listening, and I could hear like the hooves hitting the ground outside the tent. It's like, dude, this elk's close, and then it just screams a bugle. And like I pull my phone out and I got a video on my phone. I'm sitting there and it's like dark. I'm like half awake, half asleep. I'm like, guys, there's elk. They're like right outside our tent. And then this bull bugles, and I'm like, oh, he's coming in the tent. Like he's right here. And he started raking a tree, and in the morning get out and look. I mean, oh dude, it was like 10 yards from my tent. He was just raking this tree and going crazy, and his cows were over there. And yeah, that was just an unreal experience the whole time.
That's awesome, man. You can't
Yeah.
beat that. Nothing like hearing elk bugle outside your tent all night.
That's literally, I could have checked that off and I could have died on that mountain that day. I would have been happy. It is absolutely beautiful up there. And then from that hunt, we did Eric's hunt for Curly. It was a nice mule deer buck, management buck that he had permission on a ranch. They or private property. They do land management there, and they're like, "Hey, we got this buck. We'd like for you to come out and get it." He's good friends with them. They've met in the past, and they invited him out. That was a fun hunt. Probably, I got a little excited on that hunt. I will say that. It just everything, the way it built up to him getting the shot and everything, and like the deer busted and started to run, and it was like now or never kind of thing. And I remember I was just holding my breath, and I'm running two cameras and trying to film the buck and film him. And then when he shot and at first the buck dropped, I got super excited and then realized, hey, he spined him, and he kind of went down and spine shocked him, and he stood back up. And I was like, oh, whoops, I got a little too excited, so I had to get back on the camera. It's probably the hardest thing filming for other people is focusing on just the video and not getting excited. Like when I filmed Gage's hunt, I watched him kill it, and then if I would have got excited, I would have missed the whole emotion that his dad shared with him in that moment. So that one was really like I focused in on them. Great hunt, got the emotion. But the other one, when it was Eric and I got excited because I thought it was game over, man, to be honest with you. And then it came out. But right after that hunt, we went to New Mexico. And New Mexico, we did two hunts. They had their hunt winter coop out there, and then Eric also had a tag, and I filmed them out there. And that was a rifle hunt in New Mexico in the backcountry, and with mules and donkeys, we backpacked in, dude.
Yeah, I watched that film.
Yeah, that was a fun.
Yeah, so I got to ask you, how do you balance your own passion to fill your own tags and filming for other people during the season? Like for me personally, like I love being behind the camera. Like I think I like it just as much as hunting with my own tag, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I guess probably not quite as much because I haven't set my own season aside yet to go just film. But for you, obviously you love to hunt too. You love like shoot your bow and all that stuff and, kill elk. And how do you balance that problem, I guess?
Yeah, so that problem there is pretty tough, to be honest, because I mean I've got a certain amount of leave, right, per year that I get from work, and I got to decide, am I going to go film hunts or am I going to go hunt for myself? And I filmed for Hunt Wars in the past. I filmed with King's Camo and a couple different hunts for those guys, and then now Hush this year. So it's tough. It's really tough. And you got to kind of weigh your options. So for me, I looked at my season and what I had set up down here in Arizona. Most everything's a draw when it comes to elk hunting. So I knew my elk season was shot. I already knew I wasn't going to draw. It's only my third year down here in Arizona. So I didn't have high hopes, but I had buddies that had tags. And I was like, you know what? I'll hunt with them. And then that opened it up for September for me to be like, hey, I'll film. I don't have a tag. So if I don't have a tag, then I'm gonna go out and go film because I gotta be when it's September or when it's the last week of August all the way through September. I'm not at work. I will skip weddings, birthdays, whatever it may be. I am on a mountain listening to elk, chasing elk. And I've done that for the last like 10 years of my life. I've not missed a single September to be up there for at least 3 weeks out of that month. So yeah, I just kind of look at what I got. And if I got a good hunt going, I'm going to be like, hey guys, I can film this amount, but I got to be back because my hunt's going to start. Or I don't have a hunt going on, but I'm not going to miss September. So let's go. And I'll go out there and go film.
Yeah, that makes sense. I see. So you kind of fill the void if you don't have a tag out in the woods with a camera. So yeah.
Out
Okay.
there, so gotta have an excuse.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm with you. I mean, I'm with you. I'm probably in the field. I've been in the field. I've been doing like 5 or 6 big trips a year now for a while. I don't know, probably at least 50 or 60 days. So I'm getting a fair amount of time in myself, and I wish I could have more, to be honest with you. But work and family and stuff, there's only so much time.
Yeah. So this year, to be honest, this year's probably the last year for a little bit that I'm going to have as much time to go film. I'm going to be more or less, hey, if they call me up and I've got the time available, then I'll come film for somebody. But I'm really going to hyper focus in on getting out there and getting after it on my end of things because, see, coming here, I had an academy. That academy was 6.5 months. So I didn't get a hunt that year. I didn't get a hunt most of the years that I've been down here because traveling back home is just the expense of traveling and everything else and the logistics behind it. It's just like I'd rather hunt where I'm at kind of thing. I like hunting else. So this year I've got to move, well, 2025. So yeah, this year. Now I've got a move coming up. I'm going to be moving to Idaho, back home. So I'm super excited about that. So I probably won't get a hunt this year. So next year and all that, like I'm just focused in on my hunts really. And if I got time, I'm going to help out. But that's one of those things where it's, you weigh in your options and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm just focusing on what I want to do now.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like a good plan to me, man. You got to take some time for yourself at some point. So are
That
you
feels
gonna Yeah, man. Yeah. So when you say, are you going to be like solo, or do you have a good hunting buddy or a couple hunting buddies that you can count on every year? Or how does that work for you?
So where I've lived, either in Oregon or down here in Arizona, I've got two good friends up in Oregon. I got my buddy Corbin, he hunts with me, and then down here I got my buddy Ruben. But when I move and I go back, it's just gonna be solo. I started out solo. That's usually how I hunt. Honestly, most all of my archery hunts in September have been solo. I've very rarely have gone out with somebody else. A lot of people don't like to backpack into spots. I'll go back for
Yeah.
4, 5, 6 days, and I'm back there. I'd rather be completely without cell phone service, anything else, and just be out there and enjoy it than that. And that's tough to find these days, especially finding people who can cut away from the phone or get away from the wife long enough, or get permission, excuse me, from the wife long enough to be out there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so usually I just go solo, honestly.
Yeah. Lucky for me, I have my brother and my buddy Joseph and Josh. Um, got a good group of guys that can get the time off work. Their wives understand for the most part, and we do the same thing: backpack hunt, bivvy hunt, wherever we end up at night, we sleep type thing. That's just the best way to roll, in my opinion. I mean, some areas aren't conducive to it. It's better to day hunt, but most of the areas I pick to hunt are backpack hunts. I love it. Just wherever you end up, sleep, elk bugling all night, wake up, you got 3 or 4 bulls already kind of pegged, you know where they're at, their general area. You got your whole day ahead of you and chase those elk. And then you don't kill one. You just kind of repeat the process and make a big loop. It's always a blast.
Yeah, especially because when you're out there and you're hunting that style, I like it because it allows you to be a lot more mobile, in my opinion, and you can push a little further, a little deeper, and you can find those new areas that maybe you had on Onyx, and you're like, I'd check this out, but realistically, in a day's trip, it's not worth it. But if you're already halfway there and you're on your hunt, and you still got 3 days, it's like, you know what, forget it, I'm going back there now, and then you get to go back and find all those new areas.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, like as long as water is somewhat easily accessible, it's not that much extra weight to throw 4 days of food in your pack. You're looking at like 8, 9 pounds. if you do your food right, in my opinion. And then a lightweight shelter and September, you can get away with a quilt, no problem. Like I think my quilt, my sleeping pad, and my Seek Outside Cimarron I got the Dyneema one. I think that whole thing is like under 4 pounds.
Yeah.
So with food and the shelter, you're maybe 12, 13 pounds. I mean, it's really not that much extra weight if you think about like how many extra calories and how much time you're going to burn to hike in and hike out every single day. To me, it's worth the extra weight to just stay back there and keep, pick a main drainage that has 10 side drainages or whatever it may be that tie into it, and get back 2 or 3 miles and hunt this side drainage, and then go over saddle and hunt the next side drainage, and just keep working your way through that country. Versus the in and out game, I feel like you waste so much time and you burn a lot of calories that you don't need to burn, in my opinion. So unless you have animals, you got a backpack on. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, what kind of like sleeping bag do you run, like degrees wise or brand, backpack and tent are you running out there, or teepee?
So most of my hunts, I run the Cimarron, which is Seek Outside. It's a 4-person tent, but it's really a 2-person tent with gear, in my opinion. And then that's Dyneema. It only weighs 17 ounces, so it's super light. And then I'm using the Initial Ascent 8K. So that pack, you can go with a smaller pack like the 5,000, but the 8K breaks down so small that I mean, it's really not that big of a deal to manage. If you can afford to buy both bags, then get both bags. But if you want to just like a one do it all, that's an awesome pack.
Yeah.
I ran XO for 4 or 5 years before I switched to Initial Ascent, so that's another great pack. And then sleeping bags. So I have the Stone Glacier quilt. I've had that for 3 or 4 years now. It's a 32-degree quilt. I usually take that during archery elk season. I'm probably going to take it spring bear hunting from now on, because it's just not that cold usually. And we usually bring the stove on the spring bear trip. And then what's that?
Those are nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I do have the Stone Glacier 0-degree Chilkoot as well. So I brought that to Montana like in November when it's freaking cold. But I really honestly think if the quilts don't bother you, some guys just don't like them, but I usually bring my puffy coat. I always bring my puffy coat, I should say. And then I bring my puffy pants too. I mean, you can get down to 15 degrees in that quilt with your puffy gear and you're fine. So, all right, guys, quick interruption of the podcast. This is Steve with Mountain to Coast Outdoors. And I just wanted to hop on here to remind you that we have a bunch of discount codes in the show notes with awesome companies like Seek Outside, Go Hunt, Graxaw, Mountain Tough Training, Slayer Calls, Initial Ascent, and Treeline Pursuits Academy. If you're like me and you want to save a little bit of money, make sure you head on over to the show notes. We have direct links to their websites and the codes listed for you. So check them out, support the show. All right, let's get back to the episode. It's just so light. It's so small. It takes up way less room in your pack. Like I think it's like the size of a Nalgene bottle or smaller when it's broke down. It's tiny.
Yeah.
So, and then I've had the yellow, I think it's like a Thermarest. I forget the name of it. The yellow sleeping pad. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like 16 ounces. So I don't know. I've had that sleeping pad for like 5 years and it's no leaks. It's been bomb proof for me. So what about you? What are you using?
So for my backpack, I'm using EXO. I believe mine, I mix it up, but I think right now I'm running the 5,500. I want to say that's what it is, or I think it's 5,500. And then there's a bigger one. I want to say it's around 7 something. But most of the time I'm running the 55. And then when it comes down to the tent and everything that I'm running the Mountain Bonded 4-man teepee. It's their refuge teepee. Honestly, that thing's got some insane room in there. It's a little bit heavier than probably what your gear and setups running, but what I'm gaining out of it is just having a little bit more room. And that comes with a carbon fiber pole. Honestly, all together, I think the whole tent teepee, if you want the floor and everything, I think you're looking at just over like 4.5 pounds for just that. And then I run Sea to Summit for my sleeping bag. and for my sleeping pad, or I use I think it's called X pad. I used to
Yeah.
use X pad all the time. I was a wildland firefighter and as a hot shot. I did that for a couple years, and X pad was the only pad I ever had that actually made it through a season without popping. So I still have that same exact pad that I run on hunts too. But if I want to get lighter, I'll run my Cedar Summit. And then, yeah, I'm just like you. I'll either run a quilt for my sleeping bag, because I have a 20 degree, and 20 degree just, doesn't have as much fill in it. So compresses down quite a bit less than my 0 degree. And I'll usually, for the most part, I run the 20 degree and a quilt. If I have to take it, I'll take it. Or like you were saying, the puffy jacket. So the puffy I have, if it gets way too cold, I've noticed fits perfectly over the feet section of the sleeping bag. So I'll literally
Yeah.
like zip it up, and then it'll cover the feet section of the sleeping bag, and then I just throw on another shirt if it's anything colder than that, and that seems to help get me down past 20 degrees if it's ever colder than that. But that's kind of what I run there. So
Yeah. Yeah. So you're a camera guy, so you understand, like, my buddies kind of give me shit, not as much as I think they think it. They don't say it out loud as much, but I know they're thinking it. Um, I'm the guy that's like trimming every ounce I can. Like, I'm taking my food out of my Peaks aluminum bags and putting them in, freezer bags,
yeah,
and taking food out of packages so I have less garbage, and trimming the tags off my sleeping, just because I got 6 batteries and solar panel and battery banks to charge stuff and multiple lenses and a tripod and all this extra camera gear. It's like probably 12, 15 pounds of crap I wouldn't have if I didn't want to film. So I'm trying to shave weight like anywhere and everywhere I can. Gun, bow, everything. So,
yeah, definitely. I mean, when it kind of fall back onto like the fire side of things when I was doing stuff, because a lot of the times we'd be camped out, and I learned that sometimes like I would cut corners, just try to cut down gear, especially when I knew if we were going to get sent out and be on the line and spend the night out there. And even hunting, I would try to shave off as much weight. But there's some things where I was like, you know what? I can only fold a sweater up so many times before it's still just an uncomfortable sweater. So then, yeah, I caved and I do buy like a little, so it's like I want to say it's like filled with down or something. It's just a pillow that condenses down, and then you have to like shake it up and it gets like a pillow size. But yeah, I do. There's certain luxuries I take out there, and the sacrifice there is weight ultimately, and space. But if you buy the right gear, you can get the right stuff to have that luxury and not take up too much space. But downside is a little weight, and yeah, it makes your legs feel it. If you're
yeah.
not,
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some things I bring that I don't need to bring. Like, I love coffee. I think it's because I live in Washington on the coast. Coffee's a big thing here. I've been drinking coffee as long as I can remember, um, every day. So I always bring coffee. I do bring a pillow, one of those blow up Cedar Summit ones.
yep.
Um, I always slide my pack behind my sleeping pad and then shove my pillow right there, and it's just kind of just like props you up just right. Um, so there are some things I bring that I don't necessarily need to have, but I do try to trim weight everywhere else I can. So
I feel you there. I'm down to cutting the toothbrushes, and like I don't know if you take, like, some guys they'll take like a tube of toothpaste, and I'm like, dude, that's too heavy. I found this stuff on Amazon. It's called No BS toothpaste. It's like a little, like, it looks like an aspirin or something. It's small, and
oh wow.
however many days you're out there, I just throw in that so that you have enough, and it takes up less weight, less space. You literally just chew it up and then brush with it, and it's done. So like I've gone to the extent of finding like basically dried toothpaste in a tablet form that I can use to like cut down weight. Like I don't want to take this tube with me. Like it's pointless. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you, man. That weight adds up real fast with the camera gear. There's just, yeah. So how are you
battery.
keeping your stuff charged, man? Or I gotta know. So I've been using the dark energy stuff like the Poseidon and their the 18-watt solar panel that folds out. Um, but I mean, if you're filming, all day and taking photos, and I mean, you burn through batteries pretty quickly, right? Like, you can go through a battery a day easily. I try not to, but it does happen when you're like shooting nighttime, you know,
Yeah.
uh, star exposure stuff for nighttime time lapses and all that good stuff. That burns through batteries quick. So what are you doing? Just packing a bunch of batteries or what?
Yeah, I wish I could say I wasn't packing a lot of batteries, but so I got 2 cameras. Both cameras have full charge batteries, and I have 9 batteries that I take with me for the most part. If I know it's going to be a long hunt, like if it's going to be a week-long hunt in the backcountry, like that New Mexico hunt we did, I had all my batteries with me. And then what I do is I'll start to rotate them because weather has a huge effect on batteries. I don't know if you've noticed it. If it gets cold at night or whatnot, you'll plug a battery in that was full charge at the trailhead, and now it's like at 50%, and you're like, the
Yeah.
heck sitting here. The heat also, like if they get out in the sun too much, you'll just notice those batteries die quick. So what I use is I'll usually, if it's a short hunt, let's say 4 to 5 days, right? Or I know I'm coming out on day 5 and going in on day 1, so I'm only back there for like 3 days. What I'll do is take my batteries with me, and I take 1 extra battery for each camera, and I'll film. And then when those batteries are getting low, what I use when they're dead, I'll put the new ones in. And then the dead ones, I'm using dark energy. I'm either plugging it straight into the camera with the Poseidon Pro and charging my camera overnight and letting that battery charge that way right through the body. Or what I'll do is I'll use the Spectre, which is their fold out solar panel there. I'll use that and I'll just charge it. Like I'll just set it up, prop it up, get that sun angle right, go out and hunt, and then come back in the evening and have fully charged batteries. I have it's like a little bank you can plug in and then stack your batteries in. Take that with me. Or I'll even use the solar panel just to charge the Poseidon Pros, and then again just plug it into the camera at night. I do take so I take 2 Pros, 2 Poseidon Pros, 2 Nanos, and then the fold out Spectre solar panel. The Poseidon Nanos I use for my phone just because, I mean, great B-roll there, any content you can get, vlog style footage, update stories on reels or whatnot. So I definitely like to keep my phone charged while I'm out there. So that's the Poseidon Nano, and those are strictly just for my phone. Then I use the Poseidon Pros, and I use those just pretty much strictly for the cameras. If I need to, because the Nano's down, then I'll use that to charge my phone. But those are kind of my go-to batteries when I'm out there.
Yeah, sounds like we're running the same kind of setup. My favorite thing about that Spectra is being able to plug it directly into my camera body and charge, even if I can just get like 15% over an hour or two. That 15, I mean, it's just nice to have. And then like you said, like sometimes the one thing I love about my Dyneema teepee is it lets light in really well, which it can suck, you know, early in the morning if it's September and you're trying to sleep still and it lets the light in, but that doesn't really ever bother me personally. But you can leave your stuff in the shelter just in case you get a rain squall or something crazy happens. There's enough light that gets through that Dyneema that the solar panel can still charge your Nano or your your Poseidon or whatever. So you're carrying a few more battery banks than I am, but you're running 2 cameras, so that makes a lot of sense. It's just it's always a management game, right? Like I want to shoot a time lapse every night because sometimes you just nail them. At least for me, sometimes I just nail them, and sometimes I don't. They're terrible. That's something I need to work on. But you're burning so much battery juice out there trying to film all the B-roll stuff and all the stuff that fills the time when you're not shooting an animal, right? To keep people interested. I struggle with that personally. Self-filming a lot is like trying to film guys tying their boots and loading their packs and messing with their bow and pulling out the rangefinder or pulling out the binoculars or setting up the tripod. So you go through juice real fast out there. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know how you go about getting B-roll, and this is just going to be kind of a tip for anybody filming, self-filming, or just filming hunts in general. When I first started, I didn't know. I was just like, okay, they want me to film. I'm going to film everything, right? And I was burning through batteries and SD cards, and I was like, holy crap, like I don't have enough SD cards and enough batteries. And then as it progressed, I started slowing down, and I would do like, obviously you got to tell a story still. So kind of transition of a mood. If you're hiking, you can only get so many hiking videos. Most of what we do, we all know it, is hiking. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for that, just picking and choosing what you want to film that way. But like if you sit down for the day and you're having lunch, get them eating lunch, get them, drying their socks, whatever else, watering up. And then I like to do, and Maddie also, he's the one that films with Hush. He also he's like, hey, this is what I recommend. And he has it more squared away. He's got it down to down perfectly to a T, excuse me. But I go down and I'm like, okay, we stopped or something's happening, film them, film what's going on. And then I look for 4 to 5, maybe a little bit more just shots to get. So, all right, the sun, the grass, this tree, like just kind of some B-roll, and then turn the camera off, set it there. Maybe you got some time to glass if need be, or talk to them, and you can eat and go. And then, all right, one of them sleeping. Okay, we'll film them sleeping. Like, so I've learned kind of like how to manage the battery and the SD card. So I'm not just filling SD cards and draining batteries. And on these hunts here, specifically that hunt with Eric, we had 2 days to film, right? And it was a quick 2 days. Like, there was not a lot going on in the middle of the day. I mean, heck, we even ran into town on the day 2, which was like, dude, that's a huge chunk. Like, we're not getting hunting footage. So there's just some B-roll as we were going to town. But we still got a 30-minute video out of it. And it was just, quick shots. Like, okay, he's glassing. Film him, film what's going on, film what we're seeing, film that tree, film that bush. That's it. Okay, sunset. And then somehow, once you start piecing everything together and you get the talking and everything else, you ended up with a 30-minute video, and you had what seemed like you're like kind of worried wasn't enough video. It was more than enough video.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that I struggle with is that, back to the self-filming thing is, trying to get that B-roll. If you're the hunter and the camera guy, like setting up the tripod, trying to not make it look so set up, which is pretty tough to do. A guy that kills it at that is Martin Chag. I watched a lot of his footage, and that dude does a phenomenal job being solo and filming. I think anyway, it's impressive. People that don't film their hunts, they have no idea how much work and how much, like, just thinking about planning that and bringing it to life. It takes a lot of work to do something like that. So I got respect for that guy for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Braden's doing really good too. Big time. He is.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Out there.
Yeah. I just watched him kill that big bull with his bow. Yeah. He's definitely doing a great job as well. There's a lot of guys out there making awesome content.
Yeah. Seriously, there are.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, man. So like, I get asked a lot, like, for the people that I see who are trying to get into that whole niche or whatever, or get into the outdoor industry, they're like, well, how do you do it? What do you do? What do you recommend? And I mean, the biggest thing, and I've said it on to multiple people, multiple different things, is like, you got to be yourself. You got to be personable, and being yourself is going to set you out from everybody else, because everybody else is trying, they see somebody in there. A lot of people are copying other people. And don't get me wrong, everybody has a recipe that works well for them, right? And it's awesome to go ahead and take bits and pieces of what you're learning from that person, or come at them open-minded and be like, hey, what do you do that makes you successful? And then take what would work for you to build your own recipe. But you got to make yourself stand out. And I think the best way to make yourself stand out is how you present your work to people, and also how you communicate. Communication is key. I mean, in this industry, we all have Instagram, we all have computers, phones, whatever. We can shoot a text, send an email, but getting that face to face, that handshake, communicating with a team, working with a team to build with a team, instead of working with a team to build yourself, and or just expect free product. Like, it's super key in this industry to be personable, be able to communicate well, network extremely well. Like, that's going to be your biggest thing there. I would never be where I am today if I hadn't made the friends I made along the way. For instance, Kobe Owens, he works with Weatherby now. I would have never filmed for Hush. I don't think, besides Eric knowing me just from running into him at the expo and talking shed hunting with him here and there on Instagram, I don't think they would have known me outside of that. But because Kobe, I filmed with him and they were looking for a videographer, he was like, hey, my buddy Josh or Logan will film for you. And then we both ended up filming for him this year. So it's one of those things, like, you gotta network, you gotta talk to people, you gotta be personable, and then pick something to stand out. Like, have your work ready. Don't just be like, oh, here's my Instagram, this is my work, here's what I do. For instance, some guys make a book and they're like, hey, these are all the photos I've taken, these are the projects I've done. You just got to kind of stand out in your own way. And that's how you're going to get into this industry, is definitely being personable, communicating, and finding something that'll make you stand out a little bit better. And then coming down to it, work, dedication. You gotta you got to understand it's going to fail probably a lot, 80% of the time, 90% of the time it's going to fail. But what you do to those failures and how you react to them is going to dictate if you're going to be in this industry or out of this industry. You're going to have to just take it as a lesson learned and then go from there and build from there. Otherwise, it's going to get frustrating and you're just going to give up and you're going to be like, yep, I'm done. It didn't make it. Didn't work this year. I got 0 sponsors, whatever. Okay. Well, I went 8 years filming and taking photos of products that I used and loved before one person was like, hey, we'll send you product if you keep using it. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like I wasn't expecting that. And then from there, you kind of just build. And next thing you know, you start making money from it. And yeah, you just got to accept the fact though, that it's a tough industry to get into. You're going to fail, but you got to keep going. You got to learn from those lessons and not give up. And then, yeah, network, communicate, grind.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have said it any better. I think I'm on year 4 going on 5 doing this stuff, and I'm definitely not making enough money to quit my day job. That's for sure. But, somebody asked me last week about like, how do you have these partners or sponsors, whatever you want to call them? And honestly, you just got to be willing to put yourself out there and be able to take no and not get upset about it. Like I've talked to, like, I think I have 2 of the partners I have approached me, but all the rest of them I've emailed. Like I started it. I had YouTube videos already made, send them a couple of links to the videos. Like, hey, this is what we're all about. This is what our content looks like. Here's some pictures. And hey, I already like most of these companies, or actually all of these companies besides one of them, I already use their products. I already believed in them. I've already purchased them with my own money. Like I would never use their gear if I didn't believe in it anyway. I don't care if it's free or not. So it's like I was already invested in their equipment anyway. If they said no, it's no big deal. Luckily, most of them have said yes, and yeah, they send you a free product. But a lot of the work we're doing, at least for me right now, is because I love to do it. Like I'm not making enough money to pay my mortgage with this type of, you know what I mean? You just gotta love to do it. And I saw someone, I think it was Martin Chag, make a post about this yesterday or the day before. I caught it on Instagram, like 2 to 5 years of just grinding for free. Like if you think you're just going to jump into this and 6 months later, you're going to be making 100K a year, like at least from what I'm seeing, it's probably not going to happen. You got to love it and you got to be willing to work for free. So
yeah, I'll be honest. Martin was one of those guys. I don't know. I'm pretty sure though he filmed for Hush, and then from there kind of branched off on himself to himself, right? And I know for a fact that guy said he sat down one day and he just was like, "This is what I want to do. This is what I'm gonna do. I don't know how I'm gonna get to here, but I know this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm gonna get there." And I know that man sat there and ate top ramen and had been in a situation probably where he thought, I'm going to be homeless. I don't have anything figured out, but I know this is what I want and this is what I'm meant to do. And I know he just put his head down and just grind. He just grinded all the way through. And now look where he's at. He's made it. In my opinion, he's made it to where he wanted to be, or at least getting to where he wants to be. For a lot of us, he's where we would dream to be. But it took dang near getting him to rock bottom. And then he gets down there and he's just keep grinding. And the dedication that he put in, everybody else saw. Again, like I said, you got to stay dedicated. And like you said, no's are going to happen. Sometimes it might be budget. Sometimes it might be timing. And don't just take a no and be like, oh, that company is never going to talk to me again. Like I said, it could be budget or timing and they just don't have it. Just be like, all right, cool. And then next year comes around, they're getting their budgets figured out. Say, hey, still running your guys' gear. I don't know if you have room for it this year. This is kind of what I'm thinking. Ask them again. That squeaky wheel gets attention sometimes. And sometimes they're like, hey, I remember this guy. He's 3 years now or 2 years now. He's been asking. Like, then you get your chance. And once you get that chance, what you do with that, it's like private property. If somebody lets people on there and they treat it well, they come back. If they treat it bad, nobody else gets it. So
yeah,
how you treat that company when they give you that chance, that's going to dictate what goes on from there. And let's be honest, all the companies talk to each other. So if you burn a bridge with one company, it's just going to trickle down. Word's going to spread. It's a big industry, but it's a small world, man. And everybody knows everybody sooner or later. If you burn one bridge, it's just going to just run right back down, and you're going to just ruin your opportunity. So yeah, you definitely got to communicate and do what Martin did there, is just and grind. Like, that man just got dedicated and stuck to it, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had a good thought to add to that, but it just slipped my memory or my mind here. But yeah, it just comes down to that. Basically you just got to be willing to work for free. You know, if you're just getting started, approach companies and offer to do stuff for free, in my opinion. Like, prove to them there's so many people that are doing this, and there's so many talented people doing this. So, you know, be willing to work for free for a little while. Show them what you're capable of. Show them, you know, all the things you were talking about. And then from there, maybe the following year, you start talking about money or product or whatever it may be, whatever you're after. So yeah. Well, hey man, it's been an hour. Seems like this would be a good place to end it. It's a great conversation. This flew by for me, went by real fast. So I appreciate you hopping on, man.
Definitely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again, maybe before the season or maybe after the season again sometime soon.
Yeah, most definitely.
Well, hey, it was nice to get to talk to you over Zoom. Maybe we'll meet in person someday.
Heck yeah, especially with me coming up there to Idaho.
Yeah. Yeah, we might cross paths. You never know. I've ran into people out there before you would never expect. So yeah. All right, man. Well, I'm gonna wrap this thing up.
Right on.